Welcome to Jazz Piano Skills. I'm Dr. Bob Lawrence. It's time to discover, learn, and play jazz piano. You know, last week I was all pumped up because I was introducing and launching a new educational series called Technique Tuesday. On each Technique Tuesday, I introduce and explore effective and efficient ways to practice and develop various skills for improving either your melodic, harmonic, or rhythmic technique. I was all fired up for two very specific reasons. Number one, it is absolutely imperative that you, me, all of us, have an active technique development plan. Did you catch what I just said? An active technique development plan. In other words, the plan must exist and must be executed on a daily and weekly basis, right? Bottom line, no technique plan, no technique progress. It's that simple. Like the old saying goes, people don't plan to fail. They just fail to plan. So true. The second reason I was fired up about introducing Technique Tuesday last Tuesday was because I thought it nicely complemented an already existing Jazz Piano Skills series called Tune Tuesday. Right? And you know, if you're a regular listener to Jazz Piano Skills, you know that on Tune Tuesday, we put a jazz standard under the microscope to discover, learn, and play it. From knowing and appreciating its historical background to understanding its form, standard key, its harmonic DNA, in other words, its harmonic function like 2, 5, 1, etc., the chord scale relationships that exist within the tune, the melody itself, and of course, anything else we need to know that is unique and special about that tune. We do all of that on every Tune Tuesday. Technique Tuesday and Tune Tuesday. A pretty cool combination. Well, this week, I'm really fired up because I've decided to just simply spill the beans and announce everything all at one time, right? Every Jazz Piano Skills series that I have been busy developing and that is currently on the production docket. So here we go. Check this out. Tune Tuesday. You already know what that is. Technique Tuesday. You already know what that is. Theory Tuesday. Well, you kind of know what that is, right? We've been doing that for some time now. Actually, since last year when the Jazz Piano Skills podcast began. And on Theory Tuesday, it's where we take a jazz concept like we're doing today, Tritone Substitution, and studying it from both an academic standpoint and from a street perspective, right? I always like to look at theory from both sides of the street. They both say the same thing, but in very different ways and from very different perspectives, as we will see today when we dig into Tritone Substitution. And finally, I'm about ready to launch Transcription Tuesday, which, this is going to be awesome, right? On Transcription Tuesday, we will look at significant jazz solos and extract from them some enlightening improvisation ideas that can be used to help us unveil and develop our own improvisational thoughts, our own improvisational ideas. How cool is that? So there you have it, the official Jazz Piano Skills educational agenda, the official Jazz Piano Skills education lineup: theory, technique, transcriptions, tunes. It happens every Tuesday, every week, throughout the entire year. Every episode, every lesson is easily accessible at JazzPianoSkills.com or through any of your favorite podcast directories, right? I mentioned this last week. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, and Amazon Music, and actually many others as well. It's awesome. So many ways to listen to Jazz Piano Skills to help you discover, learn, and play jazz piano. To help you discover, learn, and play theory, technique, transcriptions, tunes. Every Tuesday, every week. Today, I guess, is technically a Theory Tuesday. So today, we are going to unpack the tritone substitution. But before we get into the weeds, I want to take just a second to personally invite all new listeners to join Jazz Piano Skills to become an active member. All you have to do, go to JazzPianoSkills.com, click on the join link, pick a plan, and join. Easy. Once an official member, you will have full access to all of the educational content and resources at Jazz Piano Skills, all of the educational podcast guides, all of the interactive courses, access to the weekly masterclass, the private community, plus personal and professional support that I am happy to provide to all Jazz Piano Skills members. I will, of course, share more details about all of these amazing benefits throughout today's episodes. So all I can say is this. If you are indeed serious about developing the jazz piano skills needed for you to become an accomplished jazz pianist, right? To become the accomplished jazz pianist that you want to become, then you will want to become a part of the Jazz Piano Skills community and begin taking advantage of all of the educational content materials and resources and, of course, the professional support that I provide. Invaluable. Check it out, JazzPianoSkills.com. Join. All right, on with the show. It is time to discover, learn, and play tritone substitutions. Today, you are going to discover the tritone substitution. You are going to learn how to construct tritone substitutions from an academic and street perspective. You are going to play various tritone substitutions using the classic 3-6-2-5-1 progression. So regardless of where you are in your jazz journey, whether you consider yourself a beginner, an intermediate player, an advanced player, or even if you are an experienced professional, you will find this Jazz Piano Skills podcast lesson exploring the tritone substitution to be very beneficial. I guarantee it. To begin, I want to briefly talk about harmonic movement in music. In other words, how chords move, harmonic motion, chord progressions, right? So chords move, they progress one chord to another in one of three ways. Chords move using either 1, circle motion, 2, diatonic motion, or 3, chromatic motion. That's it. 3 ways. 3 ways only. Period. Musical fact. We can take any piece of music from any genre of music and label all chord movement within that composition as being one of the 3 types of motion: circle, diatonic, or chromatic. So let's take a closer look at each one of these types of harmonic movement. First, the most common type of harmonic movement in music is circle motion. I am sure many of you have heard about the circle of fifths, and I am also sure that many of you think of it as a nifty little way to diagram, to organize and learn the keys of music. In other words, the diagram shows us that the key of C major has no sharps and no flats. The key of F major has one flat, B flat. And the key of G has one sharp, F sharp, and so on. So I guess it's true, right? It does do that. The circle of fifths does indeed neatly illustrate the 12 keys of music. But, and I mean a big but, to only think of the circle of fifths in this manner is like thinking of NASA's space shuttle as simply being a fancy airplane. In other words, the circle of fifths packs a much, and I mean much, bigger punch and contains a whole lot more powerful and essential information than simply being a nifty chart of the keys of music. Likewise, many of you may be thinking of the circle of fifths as a diagram that moves clockwise. And in doing so, in moving clockwise, illuminates the interval of a fifth. Right? The interval of a fifth that exists between the 12 notes of music. C up to G is a fifth. G up to D is a fifth. And so on, right? Wrong. Unfortunately, this misses the mark too. This perspective misses the mark big time. Why? Because the circle of fifths actually moves counterclockwise, and in doing so illustrates the strongest and most common chord motion movement in all of music. 5 to 1. Dominant to tonic. Make sense? Let me say it again. The circle of fifths illustrates how the 5 chord resolves a fifth down to the tonic, to the 1 chord. Again, 5 to 1. The most common chord progression and the most important chord progression in all of music. C7, C dominant, resolves to F major. F dominant, F7, resolves to B flat major. B flat dominant, B flat 7, resolves to E flat major, and so on. You see, I'm moving counterclockwise, 5 to 1. The dominant to tonic relationship, the dominant to tonic sound, is so important that someone determined that there actually should be an illustration, a diagram, to help all of us get a handle on this all-important motion and sound. So an illustration, a diagram, was indeed created, and it was appropriately titled The Circle of Fifths. The bottom line, if you are not viewing and seeing the circle of fifths first and foremost as a diagram illustrating the 12 dominant to tonic relationships, then you do not have the correct perspective of the circle of fifths. You are only seeing the tip of the iceberg. You have a limited perspective and limited understanding. And a limited perspective and a limited understanding produces limited growth. The circle of fifths is so important that I am actually going to be devoting an entire podcast episode to the circle of fifths coming up here very soon. All right? So for now, just simply know that the circle of fifths, circle motion as we call it, is the most common way in which chords move, in which they progress within any piece of music from any genre. One quick side note, there are a ton, and I mean a ton, of circle of fifth diagrams out there on the internet. And most of them are horrible, packed with all kinds of misleading information. So please be very careful about what circle of fifths diagram you use. A few quick tips. Number one, avoid all circle diagrams that have you thinking and moving clockwise. They have you go in the wrong direction. Number two, avoid all circle diagrams that have lines crisscrossing all over the place. Right? I see that all the time out there, right? From one side of the circle to the next. Craziness, right? Avoid that. Number three, avoid all circle diagrams that depict 15 keys. We have 12. That's it. And avoid all circle diagrams that try to illustrate both major and minor keys. Simply not necessary. In fact, the less that the circle of fifths has on it, the better. You want the letters going counterclockwise. C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat / F sharp, B, E, A, D, and G. That's it. Circle of fifths. It would also be nice if the circle had a little arrow pointing counterclockwise to just remind you that's the direction that we want to travel, right? That's it. That's all you need. If you cannot find a circle of fifths like this, do not panic. It will soon be available in a JazzPianoSkills illustration guide coming soon. The second way in which chords move, in which they progress through music, in music, is diatonic motion. This simply means that the chords are moving around within the key. For example, the 4 chord, going to the 3 chord, going to the 2 chord, going to the 1 chord. Very common. 4, 3, 2, 1. Or something like this. 1, 2, 4, 5. 1, 2, 4, 5. Or how about this one? I'm sure you all know this one. That's just going 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. All diatonic motion. Don't you wish you would have written that tune? Wow. So, diatonic motion. The chords do not necessarily have to move in sequential order, like Lean on Me, right? They do not need to move in sequential order to be considered diatonic motion. In fact, if the chords move around yet stay within the key, then I reference that movement as diatonic motion. The third and final way that chords move, that chords progress in music, is through chromatic motion, which is simply half-step movement. For example, the 3 chord, going to the flat 3, going to the 2, going to the flat 2, going to the 1. So you got 3, flat 3, 2, flat 2, 1. Very pretty. Very common, too. Or you might have something like this. Sharp 4 to 4 to 3, flat 3, 2, flat 2, 1. Right? Again, very common. Or you might have something like this. Flat 7 to 6 to flat 6 to 5. Again, very common. Flat 7 to 6, flat 6 to 5, right? Half-step motion, chromatic motion. So that's it. 3 ways in which chords move, in which they progress within music, in any song, in any genre. Circle motion, diatonic motion, and chromatic motion. Now, I know you must be asking, what's the point? How does all of this relate to the lesson today on tritone substitution? Great questions. Here's the answer. Because the tritone substitution takes circle motion, right, the most common motion, circle motion, and converts it into chromatic motion, half-step movement. In other words, chromatic motion is simply camouflaged circle motion. I'm going to say that again. Chromatic motion is simply camouflaged circle motion. This is important to know and understand, because if it is true that circle motion happens 90+% of the time within a tune, which by the way it does, then we use tritone substitutions to create harmonic motion variation within the harmonic progression of the tune. And it's exactly this point that I'm going to illustrate today using the classic progression 3-6-2-5-1. All circle motion, right? Going to use the tritone substitution to create 7 variations to that progression. 7 variations to 3-6-2-5-1. Amazing. We have already covered a ton of music theory, and I'm about to unleash a ton more. And I know from experience that when diving heavily into the theory behind any musical concept, the questions tend to surface and swirl around in your mind at lightning speed. And that is precisely why I am committed to providing all Jazz Piano Skills members immediate and personal support. So just a quick reminder that if you are listening to this podcast through the Jazz Piano Skills website, you can use the extremely convenient SpeakPipe widget, which is nestled directly beneath the podcast player, to send me a voicemail message. It's that easy. It's that simple. One click, and the two of us are interacting with each other. Send me a voice message, and I will send you one back with an answer. Right? Send me a question using voice message, SpeakPipe, and I will send you back an answer. It's a very cool technology. If you're listening to this podcast on iHeartRadio or Spotify, Apple, Pandora, or any of the other popular podcast directories, you can use the link speakpipe.com/JazzPianoSkills to send me a quick voice message. Again, that's speakpipe.com/JazzPianoSkills. And as I always say, if you're a scaredy cat and you're afraid to send me a voice message, then you can post your question in the private Jazz Piano Skills forum or the private Jazz Piano Skills Facebook group, and let the Jazz Piano Skills community help you. Again, look directly beneath the SpeakPipe widget, and you'll see the links for easy access to each of these platforms. Or, hey, you know what? Join me Thursday evening, 8 p.m. Central Time, the Jazz Piano Skills Masterclass. Every week, right? Every Thursday. Join me online, 8 p.m. Central Time, using the Zoom link posted on the Jazz Piano Skills website, and get your questions answered face to face. Again, I provide you with so many ways to get help, so definitely take advantage of the opportunities. As you know, my entire goal is to provide you with the very best jazz piano lessons, the very best jazz piano educational materials, and the very best jazz piano support that is available anywhere today. Okay, let's talk about the tritone substitution. Here is how it works in a nutshell. Are you ready? Number one, there are 12 dominant chords in music. That's it, right? We have 12 notes, so therefore we have 12 dominant chords. Number two, there are 6 pairs of dominant chords that are interchangeable with one another, right? I think I'm saying this correctly. There are 6 pairs of dominant chords, and each one of those chords within the pair are interchangeable with one another. And this interchangeability can be applied within any chord progression. Number 3, the dominant chords that are interchangeable with one another share the same third and seventh, right? The two most important tones, because it's the third and seventh that determine quality, major, dominant, minor, right? So the dominant chords that are interchangeable with one another share the same third and seventh, and this is precisely why they are interchangeable. The dominant chords that are interchangeable with one another are, you ready? A tritone apart, or 3 whole steps. That's what tritone means. 3 tones, 3 whole steps. So the dominant chords that are interchangeable with one another are a tritone apart. Okay, 3 whole steps. That's it. That's the music theory behind the tritone substitution. So let's group the 12 dominant chords into tritone pairs, okay? So let's start with C, and we're going to move what direction? We're going to move counterclockwise around the circle of fifths. So if I start with the note C, and I move 3 whole steps, so C to D is a whole step, D to E is a whole step, and E to F sharp is a whole step. So therefore, C dominant and F sharp dominant are interchangeable, right? So if I'm in the key of F and I'm going to play a 2-5-1 progression, I can play a G minor, go into my C dominant, go into my F major, 2-5-1. But we just discovered that we can substitute the F sharp dominant for the C dominant. So now I get G minor, my 2, go into F sharp or flat 2, G flat or F sharp dominant, resolving to 1, F major. How pretty is that, right? 2, flat 2 to 1. I'll tell you a funny story about that here shortly. So C to F sharp, C7 and F sharp 7 interchangeable. So now, moving counterclockwise on the circle, let's go to the note F. Now if I go 3 tritones from F, F to G is a whole step, one whole step, G to A, another whole step, A to B, my third whole step. So F to B is a tritone. So F dominant and B dominant are interchangeable. Okay, you see how this is going to work now? Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Start on any note, go 3 whole steps, tritone, and that note, tritone away, is a dominant chord that can be substituted for the original dominant chord. So here are my dominant pairs, okay? We already established C dominant and F sharp dominant, interchangeable. F dominant and B dominant. B flat dominant, E dominant. E flat dominant and A dominant. A flat dominant and D dominant. D flat dominant and G dominant. There are our 6 dominant pairs. Each one of those pairs, those dominant chords, share the same third and seventh. They are a tritone apart and can be interchanged for one another within any progression. A couple of additional little tidbits or pieces of trivia that you will also find interesting. A quick way to create your dominant pairs is to use a good circle of fifths diagram. We've already talked about that. And take the letters that are directly across from each other. So, for example, notice how C is at the top of the circle of fifths. If you draw a line straight down from C all the way down to F sharp at the bottom of the circle, G flat / F sharp, those are the two dominant chords that are grouped together and that are interchangeable. Take a look at F. Draw a line straight across the circle from F, and you will connect with B. So F dominant and B dominant are interchangeable, and so on. Another little tidbit. The third and the seventh that each of the dominant chord pairs share with one another are also a tritone apart, right? So if you take C dominant, the third is E, and the B flat is the seventh, that is a tritone apart, right? If I take my F sharp dominant and I look at the third, which is the A sharp or the B flat, and the seventh, which is the E, tritone apart, right? So there's a whole lot of tritone relationships happening within the tritone substitution. Okay, quick story. I mentioned earlier that tritone substitution, right, creates half-step movement, and that chromatic motion or half-step movement is camouflaged circle motion, right? So as we just discovered, if I take my G minor, C dominant, F major, my 2-5-1, I can camouflage that circle motion by applying the tritone sub. I'll put that F sharp dominant or that G flat, thinking flat 2 going down to 1. So I get G minor going down the G flat, which is F sharp 7, resolving to F major, right? Very pretty. So when I had first learned the tritone substitution, and I was real proud of myself, right? And I had discovered all of this. I was actually in college, believe it, when I learned about the tritone sub and the theory and everything behind it. So I'm home one weekend and I'm listening to some great jazz musicians and a great pianist who was very influential in my development and playing back in Illinois in the Quad Cities. His name was Warren Parrish, great jazz pianist. So I went to listen to him play that evening, and while on break, I mentioned to Warren, I said, man, I really love how you use tritone substitutions. And he took his little cigar out of his mouth. And he said, what? I said, I really like how you use tritone substitutions. He said, what are you talking about? What the heck is a tritone substitution? I said, well, like, for instance, when you play G minor, the C7 to F major, the 2-5-1. I said, you like to put that F sharp 7 or that G flat 7 in there, G minor to G flat 7 down to F major. And he goes, you mean 2 flat 2 1? I said, yes. He goes, why didn't you just say that? He shook his head and he goes, college boy. It's good to see you, college boy. And from that day on, he always called me college boy. So, there's a great example between the academic and the street perspective, right? They say the exact same thing. The tritone substitution sounds very smart, very academic. 2 flat 2 1 doesn't sound quite as impressive, but they both say the exact same thing, right? So anyway, just a funny story. And you're going to see today that we're going to take that circle motion 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, and we're going to create, as I mentioned earlier, 7 variations to that progression, right? Creating half-step motion. And so here we go. Let's jump in and let's do that. So to begin, I just want to play the 3-6-2-5-1 progression. So the 3 chord is going to last for 2 beats, the 6 chord for 2 beats in measure 1. In measure 2, the 2 chord for 2 beats, the 5 chord for 2 beats in measure 2, and then the 1 chord for all 4 beats in measure 3 and measure 4. So creating a 4 measure exercise. I'm going to be playing it at a very comfy 110 in a traditional jazz swing feel. Okay, so let's just listen to 3-6-2-5-1 so we get this progression, we get this sound, we get this movement in our ears. So let's bring the ensemble in and let's check it out. Here we go. Very nice, right? You've heard it a million times. That's common, very, very common movement, right? Circle motion, right? The most common movement. 3-6-2-5-1. It's all over jazz literature. So now we are going to apply the tritone substitution for the 5 chord. So now instead of 3-6-2-5-1, now the progression is going to go 3-6-2 flat 2 1. Okay, so by the way, I am demonstrating this, modeling all of this in the key of C. So our 3 chord E minor, our 6 chord, I'm playing A7, A dominant, 2 chord D minor, 5 chord G dominant, 1 chord C major. Right? So 3-6, I'm creating like a little 2-5 relationship, E minor to A7. And then I'm going to D minor to G7, another little 2-5 relationship, resolving to 1. 3-6-2-5-1. But now I'm going to substitute that 5 with the flat 2. So I'm going to get 3-6-2 flat 2-1. So it's going to go like this. 3-6-2 flat 2, 1. Nice. So let's bring the ensemble in and let's listen to 3-6-2 flat 2, 1. Tritone substitution on the 5 chord. Okay? So here we go. Check it out. What a sound. Whew. Really nice. By the way, I'm using 2-hand voicings that you can check out. If you are a JazzPianoSkills member, you can access and download the educational guides for this JazzPianoSkills podcast episode that's devoted to the tritone substitution. So the illustration guide is going to help you discover the tritone substitution concept conceptually, visually, right? The imagery, the images, and the diagrams that are laid out for all 12 keys in the illustration guide are fantastic. Check them out. The lead sheet guide, I have all the two-hand voicings that I'm using today in all of these demonstrations mapped out in all 12 keys. So if you like seeing the voicings using traditional music notation, check out the lead sheet guide. And then the play-along guide, the play-along tracks, they're available for all 12 keys. Every single one of the progressions that I am demonstrating today are play-along tracks for all 12 keys. I think there's like, 96, 96 play-along tracks. So if you are Jazz Piano Skills members, be sure to check out, to access and download those educational materials, those educational guides. They are there for you to use, and they will expedite and maximize your musical growth for sure. Okay, so now we are going to apply the tritone substitution to the 2 chord, right? So now we're going to get, instead of 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, we're going to get 3, 6, flat 6, 5, 1. So it's going to sound something like this. E minor, going to A, going to A flat, going to G, going to 1. What a great sound. 3, 6, flat 6, 5, 1. So let's bring the ensemble in and let's check out 3, 6, flat 6, 5, 1. Here we go. Check it out. Pretty cool, right? You see how I'm starting to utilize the tritone substitution to modify 3, 6, 2, 5, 1 to create variations to that progression and creating half-step motion while doing so, right? Kicking myself out of the circle motion and applying some half-step motion for some variation. It's very nice. So now what I want to do is I want to apply a tritone substitution to the 6, right? So instead of A, the tritone substitution for A is E flat. So we're going to get our 3 chord, E minor. Now our tritone sub is going to take us down to E flat, to 2, 5, 1. Very nice, right? So I got 3, flat 3, 2, 5, 1. What a sound. Love it. So let's bring the ensemble in, and now let's listen to 3, flat 3, 2, 5, 1. Check it out. Wow. Hard to argue with that one, right? Sounds fantastic. Wow. So let's keep marching on here, right? So now we're going to apply tritone substitution on the 3, right? So instead of our E, we're going to start with B flat, a tritone away. So I have my B flat. So check it out. Flat 7. Going to 6, our A. Going to our 2, our D. To our G, our 5. To our 1, C. So flat 7, 6, 2, 5, 1. I love this one too. They're all great, right? What a great way, just utilizing the tritone sub, what a great way to create some variation to 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. So let's bring the ensemble in and let's listen to flat 7, 6, 2, 5, 1. Here we go. Check it out. Right? If you're like me, you're saying, man, these are all great. And hopefully you're dying to run to the piano and start experimenting with this. It will open up your eyes, your mind, your ears to a lot of wonderful variations that you can begin creating whenever you have circle motion to create some variety within the song, within the chord progression. If you are a Jazz Piano Skills member, I also want to encourage you to tap into the Jazz Piano Skills interactive courses. They are fantastic. The courses make up a sequential curriculum that uses a self-paced format so you can move at your own comfort level to help you thoroughly study the essential jazz piano skills that you need to command in order to become an accomplished jazz pianist. Each course is packed with detailed instructions, illustrations, in-depth educational talks, interactive learning media, traditional guides and worksheets that you can download and utilize, high-definition video demonstrations of me playing the skills in all 12 keys. There are play-along tracks and lead sheets to utilize. And of course, professional and personal educational support is readily available as well. And of course, mobile access too, right? Whether you're studying using your desktop or laptop computer, your tablet, your phone, your TV, or even your watch, right? The Jazz Piano Skills courses are there and waiting for you to utilize. So check them out at JazzPianoSkills.com. Okay, so let's look at our 6th demonstration today, okay? So now we're going to apply the tritone substitution on 2 chords. We're going to apply the tritone substitution to the 6. So instead of A, we're going to play an E flat. And we're going to apply the tritone substitution to the 5 chord. So instead of the G, we're going to play the D flat. So now we have truly created half-step movement. 3 to 3, flat 3, to 2, to flat 2, to 1. So we're going E to E flat, to D flat, to 1. Wow. Love that sound. So let's bring the ensemble in and let's listen to 3, flat 3, 2, flat 2, 1. Here we go. Check it out. Wow. I don't even know what to say, right? In fact, I don't need to say anything. It's fantastic. I love chromatic movement. And look, that started as straight circle motion. 3, 6, 2, 5, 1 became 3, flat 3, 2, flat 2, 1. We can also create half step movement on the top of that progression, right? So now we're going to substitute. We're going to apply a tritone sub. Instead of the E, we're going to play a B flat, and then we're going to go down to an A, and then instead of the D, we're going to play the A flat. So we're going to get flat 7, 6, flat 6, 5, 1. So it sounds like this: flat 7, going down to my 6, going down to my flat 6, going to my 5, resolving to 1. So I have half step motion now up on the top, right? B flat, A flat, G to 1. Wow. So let's bring the ensemble in and let's listen to flat 7, 6, flat 6, 5, 1. Here we go. Enjoy. Great sound, right? Two different ways to create half-step movement. Apply half-step motion to 3, 6, 2, 5, 1 using the tritone substitution. Now, you know what's interesting? The last demonstration I want to do today is I want to apply a tritone substitution on each chord, right? So instead of 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, straight circle motion, right? Every one of those, right, we're going to apply a tritone sub. So now I'm going to get B flat, go into E flat, go into A flat, go into D flat, go into 1. Now we're back to circle motion, right? Did you notice that? B flat to E flat to A flat to D flat, and then at the very end, resolving it to C. So keep in mind, we're still in the key of C, and I'm playing a B flat to E flat to A flat to D flat to C. Wow. That radically changes my 3, 6, 2, 5, 1 and creates an entirely new sound. So let's bring the ensemble in and let's listen to this. Flat 7 to to flat 3 to flat 6, flat 2, 1. Here we go. Check it out. Pretty darn cool. Wow. I love it. So what did we do today, right? We took a 3-6, our original progression, 3-6-2-5-1, and we created 7 variations to it. We created a 3-6-2 flat 2-1, a 3-6 flat 6 5-1, a 3 flat 3 2-5-1, a flat 7-6-2-5-1, a 3 flat 3 2 flat 2-1, a flat 7-6 flat 6 5-1, and then finally a flat 7 flat 3 flat 6 flat 2 1. Wow. Don't ask me to repeat that. Wow. That is just a lot of variations utilizing the tritone substitution on classic circle motion 3-6-2-5-1 to create a lot of variation. Something to think about, something to study, something to put your hands on and take time to digest. It will change your playing big time. Well, I hope you have found this Jazz Piano Skills podcast lesson exploring the tritone substitution to be insightful and, of course, to be very beneficial. Don't forget, if you are a Jazz Piano Skills member, I will see you online Thursday evening at the Jazz Piano Skills Masterclass, 8 p.m. Central Time, to discuss this podcast episode lesson exploring the tritone substitution in greater detail and to answer any questions that you may have about the tritone substitution or about the study of jazz in general. Also, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, be sure to use the educational podcast guides for this podcast lesson and the Jazz Piano Skills courses to maximize your musical growth. Likewise, make sure you are an active participant in the Jazz Piano Skills forums and private Facebook group. Get involved. Make some new jazz piano friends. Do not be shy. As always, you can reach me by phone, 972-380-8050, extension 211. By email, Dr. Lawrence, drlawrence @jazzpianoskills.com, or by SpeakPipe, found on the Jazz Piano Skills website, in the educational podcast guides, and the Jazz Piano Skills courses. So, that's it for now. And until next week, enjoy the journey. And most of all, have fun as you discover, learn, and play jazz piano.